Hello and welcome to Some Podcast, an in-depth look into the career and filmography of someone. I'm Mike Smith. Joining me, as always, is my friend, co-host, and fellow person who also likes whoever this podcast is about,
Mike DeCriscio.
How you doing today, Mike?
Today is quite an exciting time here at Blank, a Complete Works podcast.
Yeah, it is it's a new chapter in our lives, really. Here's what's going on today. After 4 years, Mike and I recently completed our podcast about Nicolas Cage, and man, I feel like I'm having Cage withdrawals a little bit.
Yeah, especially with the announcement of National Treasure 3. Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not announced, I guess, but it's supposedly being written by somebody. So that's better progress than we've had in 10 years for National Treasure 3. So yeah, it's been 2 months since I've watched a movie with Nicolas Cage in it. It feels weird. You know what I mean? I feel like I should be seeing some Cage stuff. There's a couple of the 2019 Cage movies that we didn't cover on the podcast that are on Amazon Prime now, and I'm like, man, I kind of want to watch Kill Chain. Gotta watch Kill Chain, but I know we're gonna do those as bonus episodes at some point down the line, so I don't want to watch them now, you know, because a lot of them are probably not going to be very good, and I'm not sure I want to watch them twice. But I'm just, it's sad that we're done with the Cage chapter of our lives, but also we get to start a new chapter, Mike.
Yes, starting fresh.
And that's a very exciting thing. So, we need a new actor to talk about on this podcast, but rather than just talking about it like rational adults and figuring it out off air, we're going to turn this into a full tilt brawl to the death. Whoever we choose is likely going to take up the next couple of years of our lives. So we've got to be very passionate about who we're going after here, Mike.
Correct.
So here's how it works. I've picked 5 actors who I'd like to podcast about, and Mike, you also picked 5. Neither of us know who the other one has picked, much like how we structure our top 10 episodes, but this time the stakes have never been higher.
Consequences will never be the same.
Exactly. So it can pretty much be anybody as long as they stick to a couple of rules, all right? There's a couple of rules that we laid out for the people that we are going to choose here today. The first one is that they can't have been in any movies that we covered under the Nicolas Cage podcast. We don't want any duplicate episodes, and that eliminates a lot of people. Right off the bat, Nicolas Cage starred in 80-plus movies. He worked with a lot of different actors. So a lot of people who I would have loved to do a podcast about, like Samuel L. Jackson or Sam Rockwell or Julianne Moore, can't do them. They're gone. Hopefully none of those names were on your list, Mike. I don't know if you're furiously scribbling.
I might need a few minutes. No.
All right. Rule number 2 that we laid out is that their career has to span at least 20 years, meaning it has to have begun by the year 2000 at the very latest. So there is that also. And then number 3, ideally, our picks are people who don't already have a ton of podcasts about them on the internet, which is something that we had to deal with regarding Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
during the time of our podcast. Although I will say we were one of the first Nicolas Cage podcasts out there, and obviously the best one.
Clearly.
Yeah, obviously. So we're going to lay out our 5 picks one by one, kind of like the way we structure our top 10 episodes on our Mike and Mike Go Movies podcast. And then we each get to eliminate one actor from the other person's list until we each have one left. And then it's a matter of convincing the other one that our choice is better. So when I have one person, Mike has one person, he's got to make the case for why his is the better choice, and I got to do the same for myself. In the event that we each have the same actor on both of our lists, which is definitely a possibility because our tastes align in a lot of places, that gives that actor an advantage and advances them to the final round where they face off against whatever actor remains on each of our lists from the rest of the picking. But it doesn't necessarily guarantee that the actor who appears on both of our lists is going to win. I want to keep it wild card rules. It's going to be insane. So in that event, it could be a 3-way race between these different actors. So we'll see how this goes. But yeah. So Mike, are you excited about this? The possibility of getting on this new podcast train?
I absolutely am. I'm sad, like we mentioned before, about Nicolas Cage. That was kind of bittersweet when you got that letterbox year in review thing, email that Nicolas Cage was our most watched actor, and that's over. That'll never happen again, most likely. And that's sad, but I'm ready for some new stuff, and it's going to be exciting to figure out who we're going to be covering.
Absolutely. So yeah, again, stakes have never been higher. This is going to determine the future of this podcast for the next couple of years, probably. So it's a big episode for us. So Mike, I'm going to let you go first. Give me one of your names that's on your list.
Okay, the first person that I want to mention is none other than Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington. All right, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah, he's got a total of 58 film credits according to IMDb so far. So that, will clock us in at like just around 2.5, 3 years-ish.
Right.
And that's real nice. That was definitely a factor. We mentioned off air before we started that like there were some people, like I think it was William Sadler I looked up, who's a great character actor, but had like over 200 film credits because he's in like 2 minutes of every movie he's in for most of them. So that'd be awesome, but I have to have a life, so you can't do that. Right. And yeah, Denzel Washington, I mean, he's probably just one of the best working actors right now alive. And I feel like it could be interesting to see that. You know, I don't really know a whole lot about his early career, just to see if he came on the scene and was just like, yeah, I'm the best immediately, or if he's one of those guys that was kind of just like, you know, had a speaking role maybe, you know, to start. Is he like some kid in a McDonald's or something? Like what was Samuel L. Jackson's first thing, where he's just like a guy at a holdup or something, right?
That was in Coming to America. You're talking about with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. It'd be fun to see if something like that happens with Denzel to get to where he is now, and then now he's been doing some action stuff with Equalizer, and he had his Taken moment kind of thing. Right. So it'd be fun to see that arc.
Yeah, fair enough. Denzel, one of the great actors of our age, and definitely a good pick for your team, Mike. My first pick on my team, and this is, we're teams. This is a competitive thing we're doing here, Mike.
Yes, we're drafting.
Exactly. The first one I want to throw out there is one of my favorite screen presences, one of my favorite actors, Mr. Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum, I think a huge draw for the internet who loves the meme of Jeff Goldblum, and so for that reason alone, I feel like, hey, maybe this podcast can be marketable. You never know. And actually, I was looking at it, and, I was trying to figure out, I made sure on my list there were no, other podcasts about my people. And I'm actually surprised there isn't one for Jeff Goldblum, but there isn't. And I feel like we can capitalize on that market. A quick search really doesn't bring anything up. There's tons of movies on the Goldblum resume that I think we would love talking about, like Jurassic Park, like The Fly, like Independence Day, some Wes Anderson movies, Thor Ragnarok, your favorite movie, The Lost World.
Yeah, goddamn right.
But also crucial is that I think his early films, where he's mostly playing bit parts, include a lot of terrific movies in there. Like Death Wish is his very first movie. And he's in Annie Hall, he's in Nashville, and that kind of thing. Like, he's in a lot of very good movies early on in his career. So there won't be, a period where it's like, all right, they're appearing in bit roles in these terrible movies for a little while before they get to the good stuff kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So for that reason alone, and for those reasons that I laid out there, I think Jeff Goldblum will be a perfect choice for this podcast.
Wow, that's a huge pick. Not gonna lie, never even crossed my mind somehow.
Really, Jeff Goldblum never crossed your mind? He was he was genuinely the first one that I had in mind for the season 2 of this podcast.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at my long list, and he's not on there. What am I even doing?
You just toss it all out. Just give up now, Mike, because we're doing Jeff Goldblum for season 2. Incredible. No, we have 8 more movies or 8 more actors to recommend here. So, Mike, what's your next one?
My next one kind of was replaced somebody this morning, literally.
Really?
It was originally Sigourney Weaver was on my list, and this morning I was like, you know what? Fucking Viola Davis is incredible. I want her on there instead.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I was for some reason was thinking about Widows, the Steve McQueen movie that came out. I think it was last year or the year before. And I don't know. I just out of nowhere was like, you know what, Viola Davis, let's do it. She's got 83 IMDb credits, but I think a lot of them are TV movies and TV appearances. So it's probably way less, or at least less than that.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know how we're going to handle TV movies. We covered Cage's one TV movie, or pilot that he was in.
Yes. Yeah, I think, with Cage, it was easy because he didn't have any really TV credits to his name outside of his very first appearance, Best of Times, which was a pilot that never got picked up for series, so we were able to just review the pilot. I think we would review TV movies if people are in TV movies. I think for TV shows, if they're on shows, like Viola Davis is on How to Get Away with Murder, that show on ABC. So I don't know. I feel like if it's a significant enough show, maybe we would review the first episode or something, or their first appearance on the show or something like that. But I'm not really sure how we would handle an actual TV series thing. Jeff Goldblum kind of the same problem because he's on 2 seasons of Law and Order: Criminal Intent. I want to say
we're gonna watch those now.
We're watching all 48 episodes or whatever Law and Order
Yeah.
in the span of 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think Viola Davis is a very good pick and one of the again strongest actresses working today. Yeah, that's a good choice. Okay, my number 2 pick over here. Again, one of my favorite actors of all time. I went to a movie marathon celebrating the work of this actor at one point, which you were supposed to come with me for this, and you were sick and you couldn't go. So this is like making up for it. It is Kurt Russell. And I want to do this podcast because I think it would be fascinating to chart Kurt Russell's career from Disney child star to all-time great badass action hero before he settles into like a comfortable groove of being an awesome character actor. Like that feels like the stages of Kurt Russell's career, and he like does it. Like I really haven't seen any of those early Disney movies, and that's like a huge blind spot for me. I think that'd be really interesting to watch. And I know we would have a blast talking about his John Carpenter movies, and there's so many Kurt Russell comedies and other action movies that he's in that I'm like, man, a Kurt Russell podcast would be pretty dope. So yeah, Kurt Russell is my next pick for this thing.
Man, that's another really good book, and one of the ones we kind of talked about before we decided we were going to do it this way. Like way back, like years ago, we were like, "Hey, maybe next time we could do Kurt Russell."
Right.
And yeah, that's also a very good pick, and especially now that Disney Plus has all of his old when he was a child star, his TV movie or not, his movies, his early movies as a kid, which before that would have been probably very difficult to find get access to.
That's a good point. Yeah, now a lot of those old movies are available on Disney Plus, so it'll be easier to do a Kurt Russell podcast than it would have been like a year ago.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, all right, Mike. What's your next choice?
My next choice is one actually suggested by our good friend EJ, and that is John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly. That is a good one.
Yeah.
I think EJ did suggest that one, and he's not on my short list, so there's that. But yeah, John C. Reilly. That is a really fun one.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool to see him go from a character actor, starring in not starring, but featuring in Paul Thomas Anderson movies and stuff like that. And then he meets Will Ferrell and changes his life and just becomes a comedy man. And I think he's always been very funny, but like when he's just full starring in comedy movies, it would be really fun to see that transition. He does have 105 credits according to IMDb. Now I don't know if that counts. I didn't take a quick look if there's TV stuff in there, but there almost always is. Yeah,
there probably is, and he's somebody who works a lot. So yeah, there's probably a lot of credits to his name for sure.
Yeah. Now we did mention at one point. I had mentioned to you there's someone I picked specifically because of one single movie that I really want to review and talk about, and that is John C. Reilly in The River Wild. From like 1990 something. Helen Hunt's in it. Kevin Bacon's in it. The kid from Jurassic Park, like the little the son,
Joe Mazzello or something, whatever his name is.
Yeah, something like that. Tim in Jurassic Park, right? Is that the kid's name?
Yeah, Tim in Jurassic. Joe Mazzello, I think he was in. He's in Bohemian Rhapsody. As one of the Queen members. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and this is a movie about this family is on a whitewater rafting trip. And they come across some, I forget if they're bank robbers or murderers or some shit. And it's Kevin Bacon, John C. Reilly, and one other guy that are escaping from like the U.S. Marshals. And they're also on the river and they take them hostage. And it's like a fucking like hostage situation, White River rafting movie. And it's incredible. And I want to do John C. Reilly just to talk about that movie.
Fair enough. I mean, I've never seen that movie, so that would be
definitely
an appeal for me, sure. That's a good one. Okay, John C. Reilly. That is a really cool one, and definitely a cool character actor choice. Too as well. All right, my next one here. One of my favorite actresses, Natalie Portman.
Ooh.
Who I love. I think she's great, and like Kurt Russell, Natalie Portman was a child actor, but in very different movies than Kurt Russell was. I mean, she showed up in some greats early on. I mean, The Professional and Heat and Mars Attacks, and then. And then joined up with the Star Wars prequels. And then I think it's really interesting to see how her career kind of transcends from there, where she kind of steps away from studio filmmaking for a decade, does a lot of indies and small dramas, and then ultimately kind of builds towards her Oscar for Black Swan. And then she's been striking a balance between smaller films and bigger budget stuff ever since, and is set to come back in a pretty big way to a huge audience with Thor: Love and Thunder in 2021. So Natalie Portman, I think, has had a really interesting career trajectory, and definitely I think she would be a really great podcast subject.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. That's good pick, Mike.
Yeah. All right. We've got 4 more actors here to get through, Mike. So what's your next one?
My number 2 pick well, my whatever number 4 pick, whatever order. I've been doing them from the bottom up,
Yeah.
even though I didn't put them in order.
We started from the bottom, and now we're also at the bottom.
Correct. But that actor is Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, that is a great choice.
Yes. Yeah, it's got 60 credits on IMDb, so like right in that sweet spot of not going to be killing ourselves too much. Although potentially we're right now at the cusp of the Eddie comeback. Dolomite Is My Name, made big waves. Coming to America 2. I feel like there was another one that is in the works.
Well, he just hosted SNL for the first time in like 30 years. And there's a possibility of a Beverly Hills Cop 4 which he's been talking about making for like 15 years, but now it's like the closest to actually happening that it's ever been. So yeah, it's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, just chart that arc from like biggest name in comedy and movies and stuff in the 80s, and was he the highest paid actor or the most bankable actor? I forget exactly. He had some kind of stat for a while there.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was one of the biggest stars of all time. Absolutely. He single-handedly, essentially saved Saturday Night Live. The show is on the air today because Eddie Murphy was a cast member in the '80s.
Wow.
And there's a whole if you read Live from New York, which is the Saturday Night Live like oral history book, which I own, because of course I do, because I'm a huge nerd. The way everybody talks about Eddie Murphy, like he was like the breakout star. Like he came onto the show right after the original cast had left, and everybody thought it was gonna, like Lorne Michaels had even left the show.
Wow.
Yeah, Lorne Michaels was gone for like 5 years, and in those 5 years, that's when Eddie Murphy came on and just completely took over SNL, and in the process became like the hugest star. One of the biggest stars of all time. Like blockbuster movies, 48 Hours, Beverly Hills Cop, and all this stuff. So yeah, Eddie Murphy, awesome choice.
Yeah, and I think it would be fun to chart the kind of transition from like kind of edgy, dangerous actor that's in those early movies to like the family comedy guy to Norbit, I guess, and then now the comeback. So yeah, I feel like there's prime Eddie Murphy discussions to be had.
Absolutely. All right, Eddie Murphy, awesome choice. Here's my next one, and this is mostly my excuse to watch a bunch of Hong Kong action movies. Michelle Yeoh.
Whoa! Hell yes.
Who is maybe a long shot, because I'm not sure how much demand there is for Michelle Yeoh podcast, but I think she's awesome, and I haven't seen enough of her Hong Kong action movies, so this is basically the reason why I'm throwing her out there. And she's at the center of one of the most successful foreign films of all time in the U.S. with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Which I do love, and she remains at the forefront of very popular movies with a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, major role in Crazy Rich Asians, and a supposedly pretty big part in the upcoming Avatar 2 and 3, if those movies ever get released. So
those aren't real movies.
One day, Mike, those Avatar movies are going to come out, and you're going to love them. You're going to love them, I'm telling you. So yeah, Michelle Yeoh I think would be a really cool one for this podcast, and I think a different choice than what we've been doing, but also still deeply within that kind of action movie mold that we really love. So yeah. I mean, if we could just get to talk about Yes Madam on a podcast, like right,
yes,
which is like her third movie, so we'd be doing that pretty quick.
That'd be incredible. Now the only thing would be those might be really hard to find, those movies.
This is true. Yeah, you're very right about that.
We'll find out.
All right, Mike. Who's your last pick? Who's your last draft pick here?
My last draft pick is none other than Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton. Oh shit.
Yes. A bit morbid to say that it has an end date, at least, for the movies. But that was an issue with Nick Cage, where we had to leave some movies behind. So yeah, he's got 97 credits according to IMDb, and I mean, just one of the all-time character actors. I think that was also a leading man. Like that kind of, he somehow managed to do both, where he just sort of had bit parts where you'd be like, "Fuck yeah, that's Bill Paxton," and then he'd be the leading dude, leading guy in Twister or something.
I was about to ask you, did you pick Bill Paxton just so we could talk about Twister?
Not just because of Twister, but that definitely was a huge positive. We can finally cross that off the list of podcasting about Twister. Also, he really jumped to mind, honestly, when I rewatched Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker, where he's the captain of the basketball team on that movie, and I was like, holy shit, we need to talk about Bill Paxton, because he's like that punk kid in Terminator.
Right.
His first movie has a Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray, so like just weird shit that he was in, and I think it'd be really cool to track his arc. And his one directorial movie, I think it's the only movie he directed, Frailty, with Matthew McConaughey, is incredible. So yeah, I think we'd have a lot of fun tracking down Bill Paxton movies.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I love Bill Paxton. I think that's a really good choice for your podcast. And then, okay, my last one, kind of in the same vein as your Eddie Murphy one, actually. It's a comedian. And I wanted to throw a comedian on my short list because I wanted to mix it up a little bit. And I went with one of my all-time favorites, and that is Steve Martin.
Oh, shit.
And his film career actually kind of goes a similar trajectory to Eddie Murphy's. Where they're both starring in, really big, popular comedies for adults, and they're really funny and great. A very string of successful, great movies. And then that starts to give way to more mediocre family movies.
Yeah.
As time goes on. Plus, we could do a whole series of episodes just on his bluegrass albums if we so chose.
We definitely could.
I think that would be the most unlistenable thing imaginable. If we did that, but I would have so much fun doing it. So yeah, my last pick is Steve Martin for those reasons.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right. Yeah,
so actually, Steve Martin, actually totally unrelated, came up. I was doing a board game night with one of my friends, and it was like this. We were playing DeCriscio, which is whatever. It's a whole thing. We have to use like code passwords or so, like hints to get people to guess stuff, whatever. And I tried to get the word was nose. That I had to get my friend to figure out, and I used Roxanne, and he didn't get it, but somebody like you would have, Mike, and that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I might have guessed the police if you said Roxanne, but
well, he knew nose was the word, like he knew nose was the word.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing. Don't worry about it.
I won't. All right, so to recap, here's what we picked. My team, Jeff Goldblum, Kurt Russell, Natalie Portman, Michelle Yeoh, and Steve Martin. Pretty good group, if I say so myself.
Nice, not bad.
Your team, Denzel Washington, Viola Davis, John C. Reilly, Eddie Murphy, and Bill Paxton. A bunch of sorry losers who are never going to be a part of this podcast.
What a bunch of scrubs.
All right, so here's how it's going to work now. These names are out there. Mike, do you have all these written down, my team and stuff?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I wrote down.
Okay, and I wrote down all yours. So we're going to go back and forth, eliminating each other's team until there's one left. I'm surprised there was no overlap between our lists, actually.
Honestly, yeah.
That was a huge concern for me, actually.
I think in my long list, I actually only have one of yours. I only have Kurt Russell in my long list.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. I know I think originally the plan was we were just going to do Keanu Reeves for season 2 of this podcast, and then Patrick Willems, who's a great YouTube film critic, he started a podcast called Can't Get Enough of Keanu, where he is just going through every movie that Keanu Reeves has ever made, and I'm like, well, we can't just do that same thing. So unfortunately Keanu Reeves off the table, but I think that opened it up for some more variety in our choices, actually.
Yes.
So that's a good thing. So Mike, I'm going to let you go first. Who do you want to eliminate off of my list?
Oh my god, this is really hard, Mike. I'm not going to lie.
That's what you get when you have such good picks on my end.
Yeah, I mean, who knew I had such a worthy adversary? I am going to eliminate, I think, Steve Martin first.
Okay, all right, Steve Martin's gone. That's a shame.
It's tough, but I think for me, he'd be the least interesting, I think.
You think so? I mean, so you're saying you don't want to review all of his bluegrass albums, is what you're saying?
I'm saying we need to do an off-mic episode for Mike and Mike. That's just the Steve Martin bluegrass review.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so Steve Martin's off the table. That's a bummer, but it means we don't have to watch the Pink Panther 2, so I'll take it as a win. On your list, Mike, I hate to do it. I'm going to eliminate Denzel Washington.
You son of a bitch.
I'm sorry, but and my reasoning for this is because there actually, this was a few years back, so you might not be aware of this podcast, but there was a Denzel Washington podcast years ago that W. Kamau Bell hosted, I want to say. I don't know if you know him. He was a comedian. He had like a late night show on FXX or something.
Okay.
But he had a podcast called Denzel Washington is the Greatest Actor of All Time, period, where they would just review Denzel Washington movies.
Fair.
And so I feel like, and I didn't even listen to that podcast. I just remember like he was a guest on a different podcast where he talked about it. And so for that reason, I'm eliminating Denzel off your list.
That's fair. That's legit.
All right. So okay, I have 4 left on my team. Mike, who are you getting rid of?
Oh man. I think I'm gonna have to get rid of. Oh, this is so scary. Man, I wish there was. I think it's gonna have to be Kurt Russell.
What? Kurt Russell? You're getting rid of Kurt?
Man.
My boy
Your
Kurt?
boy? Oh, I think so.
Man, well, okay, give me some reasoning behind your getting rid of Kurt Russell.
It's just so many movies. No, look, it's gonna hurt.
You're looking for something short and sweet, is what you're saying, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, not exactly, but oh man, I don't know. It's just hard. It's a really tough choice, and there's some people. It's just they're gonna be let down, and that's what it's gonna have to be.
I guess so. I guess you're right. Yeah, I'm starting to feel it. That was a hurtful thing on your end, Mike, to me. All right, on your list now. Okay, so you got 4 left. You have Viola Davis, John C. Reilly, Eddie Murphy, and Bill Paxton.
Yes.
I think I'm going to have to get rid of Viola Davis.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm very sorry.
Like that.
I am very sorry, but I feel like of all these actors, Viola Davis, incredible actress, stars in some great movies, but the kind of movies that I most enjoy watching are typically not the kind of movies that Viola Davis makes. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like all these guys have comedies or action movies or whatever, and like Viola Davis makes some great dramas, and she's been good in various things. Plus, this way we don't have to watch Suicide Squad, so you're welcome.
We're gonna miss out on the Suicide Squad or whatever it's called, the new one.
Well, we'll probably review that from Mike. Might go to the movies anyway. So.
Oh shit! I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, don't forget we have another podcast, Mike, that may cover some upcoming movies.
Fair.
All right, so who are you gonna eliminate off my list, Mike? Now I got 3 left.
You got 3 left. Oh boy, this is really hard. Because there's one person that I for sure want.
Yeah.
I think so. I'm going to have to eliminate Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman, you getting rid of her?
I'm getting rid of her.
Oh, man. That is...
I know.
Man.
It's tough.
You're depriving our audience of a Mars Attacks episode, Mike. I want you to know that.
Fuck. I know. I was just thinking about... There's just the thing going around on Twitter today or yesterday or whatever. Someone took the the audio commentary from The Thing and just cut it, like cut it so it's all the parts where it's John Carpenter and Kurt Russell laughing.
Yes, I did see that.
Man, can I have Kurt Russell back?
He's already gone. You already eliminated.
He's already gone.
He's out.
You're right.
You
fair.
made the call, and now Kurt Russell is gone forever from this podcast. Maybe he'll get a chance in season 3 if the complete works.
Maybe.
But alas, season 2, he has been eliminated. He's disqualified.
His movies are deleted from the public consciousness. Nobody remembers who he is.
Yes, it's like what Thanos is playing in like Endgame, where he's saying like, "Oh, I'll erase them, and then they won't remember you this time." You just erase Kurt Russell from all humanity.
Yeah.
I hope.
I'm sorry.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is the star of Overboard now, and it's your fault.
Fuck.
All right, your list. I'm looking at it. John C. Reilly, Eddie Murphy, Bill Paxton. I mean, of those 3, I know who I want to make it to the end.
Yeah.
So actually, it doesn't really matter which one I eliminate again. I guess because I'll be eliminating the other one later. So unfortunately, I have to say goodbye to John C. Reilly.
Ooh, baby.
I am sorry, Mike. John C. Reilly's gone. You will never get to talk about the River Wild.
I'm gonna have to start a River Wild cast and just talk about that movie.
Like Star Wars Minute, but for but for this movie that no one remembers.
Yes. Yep. I saw what's his name, Brian Sauer, tweet about it one time. Rupert Pupin Speaks on Twitter.
Okay. And he specializes in movies that nobody remembers. So.
Correct. Wait, no, fuck.
All right, so I have 2 left on my list, Mike, right here. Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Yeoh. Who are you getting rid of?
Oh, this is the hardest decision I've ever had to make about anything.
Yeah.
Because I 100% want to cover Michelle Yeoh. However, I feel like tracking down her Hong Kong action movies and those early movies of hers may be way too hard for our means and our abilities for such things. So I think I'm going to have to strike Michelle Yeoh.
All right, Michelle Yeoh is off the list, which leaves Jeff Goldblum on my team. Which, hey, that's a pretty strong lead.
That is a very strong pick.
And actually, he is the one that I most wanted to do on the team, so that's great.
Okay.
And you've got Eddie Murphy and Bill Paxton left on your team, so I'm sorry, Mike, I'm getting rid of Mr. Bill Paxton.
No!
Your Twister episode will be... we got to do Twister at some point. Like we've talked about it so much, but the Bill Paxton cast is not meant to be. I feel like I would much more enjoy doing Eddie Murphy podcast just because like the way you said, I think an analysis of one of the biggest stars of all time, and see how his career went from comedies, and he did action movies a little bit, and then start doing the family stuff, and then kind of the comeback and all that. So yeah, Eddie Murphy's a good pick for you as well. So I think the Jeff Goldblum versus Eddie Murphy battle has to begin now, Mike.
Oh my God. First, I would like to point out that I'm going to definitely have to do like a 90s action cast and just talk about Twister and The River Wild. It's two movies that I want to talk about, and you've robbed me of the opportunity.
Well, you got rid of Kurt Russell, Mike, so I think...
Fair. Fuck. Don't put that evil on me. Which is a John C. Reilly quote or movie. So what you did?
That's Michael Clark quote in a John C. Reilly movie.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying, yeah. It's a shame. We'll never hear it. We'll never get to watch Talladega Nights on this podcast. It's a bummer. It's a bummer for sure. Okay, so I've got Jeff Goldblum. You've got Eddie Murphy. Mike, make the case for Eddie Murphy.
I feel like we've made the case already. Just to see the biggest star of a decade to go from the highest person, highest highs in Hollywood, making whatever movies he wants, and to disappear basically. I don't remember when the last movie he made before Dolomite Is My Name came out. Do you remember? Do you happen to know off the top of your head? You're that kind of
guy. You know what? He made a movie called Mr. Church in like 2016. I want to say.
Oh wow.
That might have been his last movie before Dolomite Is My Name. I'm going to look it up right now. I'm going to go to his filmography. And I think what we should do is just compare the movies of Jeff Goldblum versus Eddie Murphy and see, what we would have more fun talking about. I think that might be the way to figure this out.
This is tough.
All right, so here's what we got for Eddie Murphy. So first, let me check to see if he had any movies before Dolomite. Yeah, Mr. Church is his movie before Dolomite Is My Name, which was 2016, which was a drama that nobody saw.
Yeah.
So Eddie Murphy. I mean, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to start with. Okay, you've got 48 Hours, you've got Trading Places, Beverly Hills Cop. We would probably have to cover his stand-up specials too. So Eddie Murphy, Raw and Delirious.
Yep.
Coming to America, another 48 Hours. But then we also have to do the Beverly Hills Cop sequels, which aren't as good.
Mm-hmm.
The Wes Craven movie Vampire in Brooklyn, which I have not seen, but I've heard not great things. Golden Child, probably. We would do Mulan.
Yep.
We would have to do Mulan.
Yeah.
Nutty Professor, Dr. Dolittle, Bowfinger, which is a great movie, which stars Steve Martin, so we get a Steve Martin thing in there.
There you go.
And then we have to do the Shrek movies also. Was that part of your plan, Mike? Did you want us to do the Shrek movie?
You're goddamn right it was.
Was that your evil plan this entire time?
We'd time it just right for Shrek 5. We'd be at the forefront of Eddie Murphy podcasting.
I completely forgot Eddie Murphy was in Shrek when I kept him on your list. You son of a bitch.
You fool. You can have back Bill Paxton if I can have back Kurt Russell.
It's too late, Mike. We're in the thick of it now.
My God.
All right. So Eddie Murphy has a lot of movies I think we would have a lot of fun talking about. And it's also like, he's got a lot of movies, but they're not like, it's not like a Cage level of movies. There's probably like maybe 35 to 40 movies on this list, really. And then how many was on the IMDb thing that you checked?
It was 60.
Okay, but some of that's TV appearances for sure. Because he was a cast member on SNL back in the day, and he hosted a couple of times, and that includes the PJs, which was a TV show that he was on and created and stuff. So there's a few different things on there, which so we probably have to talk about some of that too. But Dreamgirls also on the thing too.
Yeah,
which,
didn't he win an Oscar for that? Or nominated?
He was nominated for an Oscar for that. He did not win. I remember that was the thing because once he lost, he left the ceremony. He did not stay for the rest of it. He was really mad about it. But so Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps.
There you go.
So
Hercules, baby.
Yeah, an all-time classic. All right, and then you compare it to the films of Jeff Goldblum, Death Wish, Nashville, The Sentinel, Annie Hall, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's just the 70s. The Big Chill, The Right Stuff, Buckaroo Banzai, Silverado, The Fly, Earth Girls Are Easy. Let's see here. The Player, he has a cameo in. Of course, Jurassic Park. Independence Day. Your favorite movie of all time, The Lost World, Jurassic Park.
Correct. Just protecting her baby.
Yep. I saw you tweeting about that one the other day, actually.
Yep.
The Prince of Egypt is on the Jeff Goldblum list here, which would be a cool one. Cats and Dogs, a classic, right?
Yo, I have that on DVD.
I have Cats and Dogs on VHS.
My God.
It's like we've been preparing for this podcast our entire lives, Mike.
You have to watch the VHS copy for when if we do that episode.
I gotta fly back to New York, watch my VHS copy of Cats and Dogs. Let's see.
Absolutely.
Some Wes Anderson movies, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. And then, starting with the 2000s, he's in less and less movies over time. But he's in Steve Zissou. He's in Tim and Eric's $1 Billion movie. He's in The Grand Budapest Hotel. Independence Day 2, Guardians 2. Guardians 2, he's like a closing credits cameo. I don't know if that would count. But of course, Thor Ragnarok, Isle of Dogs, Jurassic World 2. That's not a selling point for you. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much, if that's the Goldblum versus the Murphy filmography. Which of those sounds more appealing to you?
Man, do we have a total on Jeff Goldblum?
According to IMDb, you're gonna 127 appearances. That could be anything. That
literally
includes...
double Eddie Murphy, Mike.
But that includes a lot of different. Jeff Goldblum has done a lot of TV work also, which is the thing. That includes. He's hosted SNL twice. He was on Crank Yankers a couple of times. He was on. I'm looking at his IMDb. He appears on Tim and Eric a few times. Portlandia appeared a couple times. Law and Order, of course, where he was a cast member for 2 years. So yeah, I mean that includes a lot of TV stuff. So really, I mean, I'm estimating here, just kind of scrolling through. I'm using Wikipedia as the list here instead of IMDb because they kind of separate it by films and TV. I mean, it's definitely more movies than Eddie Murphy. It's probably like 50-ish, I would say, maybe.
50-ish more?
Oh, 50-ish movies. Whereas I'm thinking Eddie Murphy is like 30-ish.
Okay.
Like it's like maybe 30 to 40, whereas Jeff Goldblum's maybe like 50 to 60.
Okay.
That's my guess based on like just what Wikipedia is showing me here.
Right.
So it is longer. We will be doing the podcast. That's like basically an additional year and a half of the podcast. Which is maybe not as much of a selling point for you. I feel like I'm talking myself out of Jeff Goldblum now.
Well, it's funny because I was going to say, despite being longer or having more movies, I think the movies of Jeff Goldblum would be more fun to watch and talk about, if that makes sense. He's in some weird fucking stuff. Plus, in a lot of, Lost World.
Plus Lost Worlds. Yeah, he's in a lot of weird stuff, and there's a lot of variety in the kind of stuff he's in. For sure too, which is Eddie Murphy. It's a lot of Eddie Murphy movies. It's a lot of comedies,
right?
A lot of which are great. But I feel with Jeff Goldblum, it's jumping around like with different kinds of like big name directors. There's Robert Altman in there. There's Woody Allen. There's Don Siegel, and all these different big names. I'm just looking at the 70s right now. Again, there's more. I can only look at so many movies at once on Wikipedia.
Right.
So. I mean, there's a lot of like really great movies, Cronenberg and Spielberg and Lawrence Kasdan and all these great filmmakers, Wes Anderson, of course. So between the two, Jeff Goldblum, Eddie Murphy, it's dead heat in my mind right now.
This is really tough. Yeah,
this is really tough. I can't believe we don't have like a way to figure this out. Should we just like flip a coin or something?
Should we call a friend? What should we do?
Should we call producer Colin, ask him to read back the minutes of the podcast and figure out, based on like what we've said so far, who we should go towards?
We could cut here, and I could call Colin, text him or something, and ask between the two of them what would he prefer, and have him be the final arbiter.
Okay, do that. Yeah, do that.
Okay, we'll be right back.
What's up, dude?
Hey, yeah, sorry. We're doing podcast stuff. You're not gonna be able to hear Mike, but you're on speaker. Okay. You're on speakerphone.
Okay.
Because we're doing our, pick a new episode, new guy for Complete Works.
Yep.
And we're deadlocked. We both want to do the other person's final person. So, as the producer of the show, who would you rather hear a Complete Works season about? Eddie Murphy or Jeff Goldblum?
Holy shit.
Right?
That is a really good final two.
Right?
Yes.
Oh, man.
So I put up Eddie Murphy. And...
don't tell me who.
Oh, whoops.
Who picked. Yeah. But my initial thought was Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum, is that it?
That's the one, I think, as decided by our unofficial official producer now. I think it's going to have to be Jeff Goldblum.
All right. Thank you,
I think
Colin.
that's my first official actor producer.
Yeah, the first official actual... No, you check the minutes. That's a real thing, JK.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. All right, we're going to get back to the episode. Thanks for helping.
Not a problem. That's hilarious.
Talk to you later.
Have a good one.
All right, well, there it is. Producer Colin has determined it. He broke the tie. Jeff Goldblum is the subject of the new season of The Complete Works. Which means that I have emerged victorious.
Oh, fuck, wait, no.
You stupid fool. Yeah, there it is. Jeff Goldblum. I am very excited about this one, Mike. I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about Jeff Goldblum over the next, 3 years of our lives.
Yeah.
But maybe it won't even be 3 years. Maybe we can speed up the process a little bit. Maybe at some point start doing this as a weekly podcast. I would love to have enough time to do that. If that's just a matter of being able to do it, I guess. But yeah, are you excited for Jeff Goldblum, Mike?
Yes, that's who I picked. Yeah, man, it's pretty funny that we flipped. I wanted Jeff Goldblum, you wanted Eddie Murphy.
But in the end, I won. So there is that. I guess I won. I don't know. The Eddie Murphy one sounded really good too. Maybe we can save that for season 3 of The Complete Works. Keep it in the back pocket.
Season 3's Kurt Russell.
Season 3's Kurt Russell. God damn it. We'll probably have to do something like this again in season 3 to figure out what we're going to do. But yeah, so Jeff Goldblum is going to be the subject of the new season of The Complete Works, and I am very, very excited about that prospect. It's a lot of great movies that we're going to be getting to. The first of which is going to be his very, very small role in Death Wish from 1974.
Yes.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Again, he's maybe in 2 seconds of that movie, but it's a pretty good movie. So I think we'll enjoy talking about it anyway.
Were you at was it Hudson Horror Show when we saw Death Wish?
I was not. I was living in Montana at the time. So
yes.
you went to that one. I think you went there with producer Colin, actually.
Yeah, there's actually a really funny moment where Jeff Goldblum's scene came up and the film melted. So they had to, or whatever happens with film things, came off the track or some shit. So they had to, fast forward a little bit or wind the film forward and then put it back on. So I missed his scene.
Jeff Goldblum, so hot he melts the film that is projecting his image. Jeff Goldblum. We're going to be starting with Death Wish, going all the way until The World According to Jeff Goldblum on Disney Plus. Maybe.
Maybe.
We'll see. Maybe we do the first episode of that whenever we come around to it. But yeah. All right. So Jeff Goldblum, the new subject of Complete Works. I think a worthy successor to Nicolas Cage.
Absolutely.
Sure. All right, so there we go. We'll be doing that episode in about 2 weeks. Mike, where can we find you online this week?
You can find me at MD Film Blog on Twitter and Letterboxd.
And you can find me online at M Smith Film Blog on Twitter and Mike Smith Film on Letterboxd, Radio Mike Sandwich on Instagram, and I will theoretically be making a Twitter handle for this upcoming Jeff Goldblum podcast too, so you'll be able to follow us over there as well. And we got to think of a name for the podcast actually too. Which I think, I was thinking about Goldbluming in my head, which is a Community reference. I don't know if you remember that, but that's from the first season where Jeff is getting obsessed with a pottery class, and he starts muttering under his breath, and Abed's like, "Jeff, you're Goldbluming," and Jeff's like, "Goldbluming? I don't even know what that means." So I think Goldbluming will be a good podcast name. I've also thought about Goldblum Maniacs, but I feel like that might be too difficult for people to...
That's a lot of syllables.
Yeah, exactly. I think Goldbluming, a Complete Works podcast, could be the future of this thing.
I like it.
Unless we figure out a different name in the meantime. But anyway, so thank you for listening to The Complete Works. I'm Mike Smith. That's Mike DeCriscio. Don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast app. If you want to contact us, hit us up at mikeandmikegotothemovies@gmail.com. And you can find the rest of our podcasts on Rapture Press, alongside the Review Zoo, a podcast about comic books and movie news and all that nerdy stuff. So our next episode of Goldbluming is going to be the first one focusing on Jeff Goldblum, and that's going to be Death Wish. Very excited about that. Plus, keep an eye out for the next Mike Might Go to the Movies, where we'll be discussing the new Guy Ritchie joint, The Gentleman, which I'm also pretty excited about. That looks like a ton of fun.
Yeah.
All right, and that does it. A new season of The Complete Works is upon us, guys. So thanks so much for listening, and we haven't thought of a new outro yet, so I'll just say thanks for getting in the cage.
See, here I am now by myself, talking to myself. That's chaos theory.